Joust. Last night, as Chris slides in here, last night we had the Joust Dinner, very similar to when I played the Hunter's Machine. We did a dinner in Chicago before I played at the Williams Building, and that included Newcomer and Reuter and Python Angelo and Walter Day and Steve Sanders and all sorts of people. This was dinner last night we did at the Candlelight Inn here in Arlington, which is like a staple. We figured, hey, the machines are 40 years old. Let's go to some place that's been at least around as long as that. So we went to Candlelight Inn. Food was pretty good. Company was even better. The conversation was crazy. We had obviously John and his family, and we had the owners of Free Play, Corey and his wife, and we had the Killer Queen creators, Joshua and Nikita, and I was there, and then our special guest, surprise guest, John Carmack and his girlfriend Trista came in to surprise John and talk Joust and talk AI, and it's been very cool. One of the other interviews we did was Noah Falstein, who was part of DreamWorks and part of Lucasfilm Games, and he was the head of games for Google. So the credentials of the people that we brought to bear on the Joust interview series, 40th anniversary interview series, has been cool. And today we're doing John's interview, and then an interview with the Killer Queen folks, and Tracy, who's playing next to us, and then we have the Joust Cutthroat stuff. But what we're going to do is guide John through the things that John wants to cover and things he thinks that people ask him a lot, and that way we can get it on tape on the 40th anniversary of Joust. Today is actually the physical day, July 16th, that Joust was launched on. So welcome back. Look,
Thank you.
Who gained us. The cool thing about John's setting and being a little further away from us is John is a giant. I have pictures of, not just a giant in the gaming industry, but I have pictures where one of my favorite pictures is years ago I came down on John's birthday and played in a Cutthroat tournament so I could play against John, and he didn't know I was coming. But after I won the tournament, there's a picture of Patrick Scott Patterson, one of the owners of the U.S. National Video Game Team, and John and I'm in the middle, and I look like a midget, and I'm 5'8", so they all must be like 7'6" or something like that. I'm not. Are they both? What do you think, Chris? Are they very tall, or is it just me?
Who's that?
John and Patrick Scott Patterson. They're both about the same height.
I would guess like 6'5" then. PSP, I guess 6'5".
Yeah.
Is that it? I get it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so giants in the gaming industry and giants in real life. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, you have to be careful what you ask for. I said, I wanted to be 6 foot tall and weigh 200 pounds when I was a kid. And if you're not careful, you only get half of what you ask for. I'm not 6 foot tall.
So we're being joined live now by the creator of Joust. This is absurd. The actual creator of Joust on the 40th anniversary of Joust, John Newcomer. Welcome to the stream, John.
Welcome, John.
No, thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here, and you traveled all the way from where? From here in town someplace, I understand.
Yeah, from Plano, northern suburb of Dallas.
The far off burg of
nice.
Plano.
Northern suburb. So, but it should have been fast because it's all downhill then, right? From north to south, right? It's all there are no hills or anything.
Yeah, we don't have many hills here. It definitely is. If you turn it sideways and look at it on the map, you're falling for sure.
Except if you count the fifth element, level upon level of overpasses.
Overpasses, yeah. Oh my gosh. First time I was in Texas many years ago, we were opening up a store for a company, and I was like, everybody was driving 80 miles an hour in the city, and I was like, what? what? And they go, yeah, everybody drives 80 miles an hour in Texas. I was like, is that true? Does everybody drive 80 miles an hour here?
They on LBJ. If they're in the toll lane, yes, that's where it starts. It's speed limit of 75 and apparently minimum speed of 85.
Minimum
And and usually it's when I put my turn signal on to change lanes. That's when the speed goes up.
It goes higher. Goes higher.
Yeah.
Goes higher.
Yeah.
So we wanted to cover our list of John.
First
stuff.
of all,
go ahead.
congratulations.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like this is a monumental game. We still play it today, 40 years later. We have 5 copies of it here. You can see it being played on screen. We still have tournaments of it. I can tell you, I ran a 20-plus person tournament on Joust Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always televised. They're not always streamed live on Twitch, but we still play the heck out of your game. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. And it's surrealistic because this is like one of the points I wanted to make was that when we were making the games back in the 80s, the thought that they'd still be being played in 40 years ago, 40 years later, was just kind of a bizarre thought because you thought, technology keeps getting better and better. We'll be playing those games and a lot of these
and you're the cutting edge of technology at the time.
Yeah, right. And so that some of these games would be forgotten, or that they keep evolving into the next generation better, and then just the physical thing of the cabinets being alive and still being put together. It's a testament to not just the players, but like people at Free Play here and other arcades. I mean, they're babied.
Yeah.
They're babied out of love to keep them still alive, and the cabinet sound and the electronics, and then you see on Facebook where people trade little secrets. Well, we can keep a joystick alive longer, or we can keep the board going longer. And it's like, it's so.
Our official policy as an arcade here is that these games are great. We love them. That's why we have the arcade. And this is before even my time here, although I was a customer early on. These games are meant to be played. So it's our job, our duty to keep them upkept. We have over 10 techs on staff. We take it super seriously. We want to keep it as original as humanly possible to what you created 40 years ago. And we also want it to be played. We want kids to come up here and touch the buttons, and do they make spills, and do they cause havoc? Yeah, they do. And then we fix it, and we introduce it to the next kids, and then they grow up and introduce it to their kids. And I don't even know how many generations of Joust players there have been, but many. And the influence of Joust is on us as arcades, on players, on re-releases of Joust, and on other games. And we're going to be seeing a lot of that like throughout the day as we highlight what has happened with Joust and how it is still culturally relevant as a game that we're playing right now, and as an inspiration to even modern developers.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, actually, one of the pillars ended up being very controversial, but one of the pillars was based on one of my favorite quotes, which is, you'll never make a difference being like everybody else, which ironically was said by P.T. Barnum, but I always loved that quote. Was, do something a little bit different for somebody, and that's not always easy to do, but it was certainly easier in the 80s because there was so much room for games to try that weren't done yet. So.
Where'd you come from? Like, how'd you get into gaming?
Well, I guess it started off that I was a chess geek. Okay, and then and my aspiration was to be a toy inventor, so I took a different path than most people in the industry. I set out to be I was an industrial designer. That
seems totally unrelated.
That's what my degree was in, was
Okay.
industrial design. And it was because I wanted to be a toy inventor.
So you studied the manufacture of toys? Is that industrial design? Like, is that what you were thinking?
No, making toys and games.
Okay,
And
okay.
the kind of this weird secret was that, like, most of the toys and games that were invented during the 60s and 70s were done by toy inventing think tanks. Like Marvin Glass in Chicago was one of the biggest ones. And I grew up in Indiana, and so I was like trying to get a toy inventing job, and there was Marvin Glass, and then the guy I got a job with, he broke off from Marvin Glass to start his own company. His name was Gordon Barlow. He was a absolutely tough as nails guy, but he took me under his wing and mentored me, and he's the guy that he was most known for inventing Mousetrap, but he had like 100 patents, and so it was not just doing the toy the toy inventing part, but I was also well aware that those were going to be pushed aside for electronic devices or electronic games, because when I was in college, I was addicted just to the Mattel handheld game done by George Kloss and Mark Lesser,
Okay.
which was, to me, one of those brilliant slap on the head that, anybody could have thought of how to do that, but they didn't. And I knew that. Then you had the Space Invaders, and then it was a lock that eventually video games was going to be the thing. So I was doing the toy inventing, and then we were doing some electronic toys then as well, and I wanted to shift to doing video games.
So you went from toys to video games, and my recollection is that you were really chicken of applying at Williams. or that there was a chicken involved.
Okay, so the
Segue into
okay. So when I interviewed, I was interviewing with two companies at the same time, and what they didn't know was that. So my pitch was that, okay, the first wave of games were being done, and a lot of those guys were rock stars. They were moving on and getting royalties and stuff, and so the business model was changing for the companies like Williams and Midway and stuff. They wanted to hire their own work for hire teams to keep the assembly line moving, but they didn't know how to generate a lot of They didn't know how to generate a lot of ideas. And when I came from a toy inventing think tank, we had a very regimented way of coming up with ideas, and there was a formula behind it and all. So when I wanted to move to video, I thought the timing was right, that they might be open to someone who was just a game designer, who was also used to leading teams or working with programmers and stuff like that. And so in preparation, I was researching different game ideas because I didn't want to go in empty-handed. I would keep it in the back of my head because that's what Williams wanted me to do specifically. Is they were looking to hire someone to come up with what they call a treasure chest of ideas or whatever. But I already had the basic outline of Joust in my head, and I did it by going to the library and actually researching that.
So before you're even hired on at Williams, you have the idea of Joust ready to
That's
in some form ready to go.
That's correct, because what I wanted. This wasn't. I didn't come up with ideas by I'd have this big revelation in a dream. You can't, because you can't generate enough ideas that way. You had to stimulate how to come up with ideas. And so what I started with really was I looked at what were common dreams that people had, and it was like number 2 on the list was people wish they could fly. And what superpower do people wish that they have? And a lot of them wish that they could fly. And I was also a comic book collector, and I had like 100 comics on my wall, and like half of them had something where a character could fly, or he had wings, or a cape, or whatever. So flying was the big key there. And so I'm getting to your question here. Is that so? I actually had that in my back pocket, and that in a couple of other games. But Joust was one of doing something where you were emotionally connected to flying was the idea, but I had sort of a twisted sense of humor. And so when I applied, I actually put my resume down the throat of a rubber chicken as it was a double test. As one to see did they have a sense of humor, because I wanted to work at a place that had some light sense of humor, but it was also and guys, if you hire me, I have this idea for a game with birds and flying. So, sorry.
There you go.
Long story
So the resume was actually in a rubber chicken.
That's correct.
One? So it was like you stuffed it in a rubber. Okay.
In a rubber chicken.
Ken Fidesz asked me for a copy of my resume.
You're like, do you have another rubber chicken?
And I handed him a rubber chicken, and he actually looked at me weird. Go figure.
And thus starts the relationship with Williams that became Joust and Sinistar and multiple other games. And so many great things were said about John and Joust and the development team in this series, which we called the Joust 40th Anniversary Interview Series. And I thought it was very, very crucial that we had this at Free Play. Free Play has such a great reputation with games and keeping up their games, and John lives in the Dallas area, so what better place to have the 40th anniversary of Joust launch than here. And we've got a list of things that you want to cover, and we're going to go off topic just to torment you and trash talk you a little bit too.
All about
no trash talking
chicken.
today. Yes, definitely trash talking today a little bit. So let's talk about how Joust came to be, because we know that the concept, you had it prior to coming to work for Williams. So how did you come up with this idea? For Joust, the concept of Joust.
Yeah, that was the research I did at the library before coming to Williams. Was primarily the looking at the flying, and that there was a commonality with people wanting to fly. And so then so I fleshed it out a little bit, but when I got the job offer at Williams, my first assignment was they wanted what was called, they had some weird term like the treasure chest of ideas or something, that there would be a few ideas for programmers when they became free. They could pick through a number of ideas, and so I had to quickly put together a rough presentation that Mike Stroll, the president, wanted to hear what some of these ideas were, and then Ken Fidesna was the head of engineering, and Paul DeSalt, the head of software. They wanted to hear what the basic ideas were, and then they said, okay. Then the next programmer that comes through would pick one of the. There was two I was really pitching the hardest. One was War of the Worlds, which was the one that they were most comfortable with because it was more of a high shooting type of a game, but the hardware wasn't there for it. And the appeal of Joust was that it didn't use any fancy controls or user inventory and stuff like that. And so then the next step was Bill Futzenreiter, who was a programmer doing pins, and he wanted to get into doing video. So we went through the ideas, and I was pushing heavily on with the idea of Joust, and but ultimately it had to appeal to him too, and it did, and he picked that, and then that's how we started working on Joust. It started off with he and I.
Forgive me while I share the link to the social media, something you definitely did not have to deal with when you're creating Joust. So let people know that we're talking to you.
The thing that gets me is how fast he can type with his thumbs.
Yeah, I can.
It's as if I've been doing something with manual dexterity for literally my entire life. Some of my first memories, the first time I played Joust, I'm so sorry about what I'm about to do. The first time I remember playing Joust, I was in the daycare center.
Oh my
and
God.
we had an arcade. All the games were free when we got there after school, and Joust was one of the standout games because it was a game that I could play with my friends or directly, simultaneously. When did it come about that you would do simultaneous multiplayer in the game? Because that's a very iconic part of Joust.
One of the first games the first game to do that. There were two-player games, if I recall correctly, but Joust was the first to be able to play against each other simultaneously.
There was Space Wars and maybe Wizard of War. But,
I've never played Space Wars. We have Wizard of War.
Right.
Yeah.
But the decision on that was it took me 5 minutes to make that decision. It was because
it's a great idea.
It was it was really weird because I'm coming from a different perspective in the toy world, and like I said, the Gordon Barlow was he was mentoring me, so he actually let this punk kid sit in on his presentations of toy ideas to the presidents and vice presidents of companies he was trying to pitch to. So I was learning how those guys were thinking, which was really a big advantage. And so like on my first week at Williams, so it was like so Ken gave me this. He told me that he had to come up with just some rough ideas to present to Mike Stroll and all that. But he gave me the lecture on here's how the industry really works, kid. Which was okay. So yes, your job is to come up with a fun game that people are going to want to play, but really it's to get 25 cents out of someone's pocket every 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, within 5 minutes, I'm going while he's talking. I'm saying, okay, that's easy. We're going to make a simultaneous game, so that'll increase our odds of getting 25 cents times 2.
Right.
So that'll help us a little bit. So that was the basis of doing simultaneous. It was a business decision.
Interesting.
But it was also that I'm going, and the fun potential of getting 2 people playing was there, and it wasn't explored enough in the arcades. And actually, the one thing I regret about Joust was I wish we had time to explore it more and do even more with it, even on the first incarnation of Joust. So
Are there what's in your mind as being left on the table that you would like to have the extra 3 months to flesh out before you re-release Joust?
Well, well, it's cool to see the Killer Queen guys doing a lot of it now. It's like, yeah, get more people and give them incentives to kill each other. Give them incentives to work together. So it's really cool to see what they've done with Simultaneous.
Yes.
And so it would be a lot of ideas like that, and then kicking around as much as possible to see how we could get more of that social aspect into the game.
Well, simultaneous play, obviously, the two ways you can play, which one we're doing today, which is cutthroat, which is against each other, and the other is marathon or tournament settings, which is 2 players playing cooperatively to get a really high score. And Steve Sanders and I have the doubles marathon record, playing 15 hours. And if you look at the games as it's being played up here, in the upper right-hand side, I played from player 2, and the upper left-hand side, Steve played from player 1, and we let the guys stream up to us out of the materializing pads and bouncing off the ceilings. And we had 40 million, 120, 150, and just over 15 hours. It was like crazy fast. And I've never seen anybody play that aggressively in a because you can die so quickly. And then the other one is tournament settings where you only get 5 guys, like this one is set up for, which to get 1 million points, I can only think of 3 people alive who've ever had a 1 million points or more on tournament settings. So it's super, super difficult and precise game, which makes it even more fun.
When you see these scores, John, do you want to redesign some parts to make it harder? I know. I talked to Warren Davis, creator of Qbert, and he absolutely did want it harder, and in fact has made a harder version of Qbert.
Yeah, he did.
He
did make a harder version. Of
yeah.
And yeah, So kind of the way it worked was that one of our parameters was we had to get done in 6 months.
Yeah. Which is insane.
It was insane.
My friend works at Gearbox. We met her last night, Sarah, and her team on a port is 2,000 people, and it's way over 6 months.
Well,
2,000 people.
Yes.
And it's like, okay,
a small city.
Well, even here where we didn't have much memory to have a lot of characters and stuff like that on the screen. You okay there?
Yeah, I decided to spill stuff on the keyboard here.
Oh, okay.
Water. We get to the good stuff later.
I'll set it down here so I
and John,
spill it on the floor.
That water's for you if you'd like to drink it, or spill it on the
spill
keyboard.
it on the keyboard too, so that it's universally wet.
Avoid high electricity things, but we're good on the keyboard.
I actually have some rice setting over there. We can put your keyboard in rice. You were saying something as I spilled stuff all over.
I was just gonna go into that. The teams were small, and even though there wasn't a lot of memory to have a lot of characters in the game, I'm very methodical, and we had to go and so was Bill, and we had to go through and try to test for exploits, and every time the AI changed a little bit, we'd have to tweak that. And I was doing the art for the ledges because that was a very big part of the design too, was seeing how things bounced off it. But basically there's like 1,000 things to try. And you really needed like a QA team, which we didn't have then. We got Noah Falstein at the very end of the project, and other than that, it was really Bill was playing every day, and then I was trying to dissect the game, looking for exploits and looking at the AI and stuff. But yeah, you can't. There just wasn't time to check for every little way that somebody can get huge scores. But then on the flip side of it is the delicate balance is, if you're trying to get quarters out of people's pockets, it's like, well, first of all, somebody like Lonnie would kill you, kill the whole economics of it, because they would, great. So your game just earned $1 a week. So you're dead there.
And he's upset that he had to sleep.
Yeah, but the flip side of the coin is, you have to give players something to aspire to. You want people to beat the game and become really good, because that, now there's somebody to look up to in the arcade where they're going, okay, now I want to practice and get good and learn these tricks too. So that was the balance.
Lets them know there's something they can achieve.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was hard to know. You just didn't want there to be too many people that were destroying the game, or that it took some skill and patience, or a combination of that to be able to get those scores. But yeah, we still had to worry about the cash box at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have an achievements list built into the game, the high scoreboard. It's a big one in my recollection for any game. Did you have much thought about the high scoreboard or how it's presented? Because it should come up here in a sec. Nope, it's not. But
the high scoreboard.
It's quite big. Like contemporary games was like
daily buzzard, and there's also the overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all the politics of trying to it was always an arm wrestling contest between the people working on the games, wanted to get some recognition that they worked on the game. Right? Because otherwise they would
print it on the marquee like that.
Well, otherwise they would threaten to throw an Easter egg in the game or do something like that, right? So, they wanted at least people to know, who worked on it, because you're proud of it. You put your life into doing this game. But at the same time, management, that's the last thing they wanted, was because literally
they wanted an assembly line.
The headhunters would just call everybody that worked on the team of a successful project and try to pirate them away. And so they were really afraid of that. And so the first compromise that was made was they allowed 3 initials. So the daily buzzards were like the people that worked on the project the longest, and so my JRN is there. Foots is PFZ is Bill Foots and Reuter. Jan is Jan Hendricks at the time, but she was the lead animator. So she's on the daily buzzards. And then there was I think MRS is Mike Stroll, so yeah, you had to put the president of the company.
Right.
But then on the 40 list, there was sort of a protocol that you could put in because 6 didn't fit the other people that would come on and off the project, so their names were... Yeah, so their initials are represented there. other departments. So yeah, there was like a list of trying to make sure that you included people that were involved in different ways.
Which is interesting because most people don't know this. The red ROM version list on the scoreboard is different than the green ROM version list on the scoreboard.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So was it a conscious? Is the size of it just to accommodate a bigger credits list? And I never really put the two together. I mean, I did understand that like those default names represented you and the programmers. But yeah, so it was big just to accommodate for more programmers. That's cool.
It was a win-win.
Absolutely,
It was one is you wanted everybody on the team.
Yeah.
Even some people didn't work on the game very long, but you still wanted them to get their initials on there.
Mm-hmm.
But the other was to give people something to shoot for, and that's why the daily buzzards to me was important, because then it wasn't the same people in the arcade always getting it, because so the top dogs at the arcade aren't there on Thursday or something. So, well, now you got a chance to be on the top, and then you have the longer list was that so people that were the regulars and stuff can compile and try to get their initials on there as many times as possible.
Everybody wants to feel important. To get your name on the machine, even for a day, is.
Yeah, no, and people have it all the time when they walk through here, and they put 25,000 on Galaga, and they're like, I got the high score, and it may be 3:10 p.m. and we've been open for 10 minutes, but like
you got it.
You did get it, and it means something because there it is, and you can point to it, and when someone replaces it later in the day, then that means something too, and we're all playing games with each other, and sometimes Lonnie can't make his way out all the way from Kansas to put 9s on everything.
It's interesting. As many places as I've played, there are so many times I've told people, I said, they'll have like a high score thing on their machine, like a postcard or something like that, and I'll tell them, I said, you don't have to put my high score up there, because if you want your people to play and to achieve the high score, just take a picture of it and keep it someplace, or have a master's list and have a regular list. Yeah. I said, because not everybody is going to come through here and be able to do that, but you want your people in your arcade to feel like this is their arcade.
That presents steps of progression also. So the daily buzzer, can you get the daily high score? That's cool. And then, are you done playing the game forever? No, there's a bigger score. And in your case, Lonnie, like there's always your score, or maybe even the world records that you haven't achieved yet, which I don't put any of them past you. To continue playing, to continue stepping forward. So it all keeps people into the games.
Yep, absolutely.
So
go ahead. I was just looking at what.
So you created the simultaneous multiplayer. Made sense, and I asked you this last night during the dinner, but. Was it a cooperative or a competitive game to you?
Well, we always played it cutthroat, because when you're playing with a friend, or like when Noah was testing, then we would play, and you just couldn't resist the temptation of going, okay, yeah, we're looking for bugs and all that. Then Noah's playing, and then I stab him in the back with a lance and go, oh, oops,
How did Noah go through that
oops, but you got 50 points. So
I'm almost sorry. So here's 50 points.
Yeah, and then I also, I mean, you can't tell now, but I used to play a lot of basketball, and trash talking was a part of that. And also, I played a lot of speed chess and speed chess for money too. And
I don't challenge you.
I got to tell you, there's a lot of trash talking. So it was just kind of. And it's the same thing in video games. I mean, if you play, I don't know, guys playing Mortal Kombat, they, when they were making that, they were trash talking all the time.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
And that makes it fun. And quite frankly, some people are really good at it. And you just start laughing, and you just.
And the more subtle you do it, the more I find it's funny.
So
it actually made it more fun. As long as people didn't get really insulted, as long as there wasn't a real insult, it had to be like on the basketball court type, Michael Jordan fun.
As I was just tormenting Tracy over here after we learned from Noah Falstein that it was two people. It evolved from one-on-one to two people. And one player would be playing. When he died, the other person would play on the team. So like if you and I would be a team, you would play. And when you died, I would take over. And the other person's job, when he or she wasn't playing, was to trash talk the other team so they would lose a person. And I was like, the evolution of Joust that I was unaware of, I was so enamored by that today while Tracy was over here playing, I put on my worst English accent and I said, "Oh, Tracy said you're playing and you lost or you get 50 points. If you keep playing like that, you'll get 250 points." It's pretty amazing that you came all the way from the UK to get 250 points.
She's getting up there now. She's now about what the best I could ever do.
100,000 points.
John, what's your high score?
I never broke 1 million, and I'm thinking it was somewhere between 750,000 to 800,000. But I don't have the patience to go that long. Anyway, it's like I wanted to break 1 million, not just to see that I could do it, but also I wanted to see if anything weird happened in the ROMs. But just in general, I don't think with any game I play, I don't have the patience to play that long.
The only major weird thing that happens is this, like the sensory overload, where everything will slow down. Like some things will load correctly, like the player will load correctly, but then the enemies load really slow and play really slow for a little period of time. And while it's an overload, as Fitz told me, to me it's one of those things like throwing somebody a curveball. I almost always die when that happens because I'm used to playing super fast, and then it's like they come at you like half speed. You're like, stop it. It's like it's evil.
Well, yeah, that's the stuff you have to check. And nowadays, when you have QA teams, you're always looking for slowdowns, and but there wasn't time to check for all that. We couldn't have. We just didn't have the time.
I think it's one of the charming things of the game, like sliding between the ledges, which was an anomaly, and of course the Red ROM version had that, and it also had the pterodactyl, as we call them, cheats, because standing and stabbing the pterodactyl in the mouth continually is not really playing. It defeats the purpose of the game, which, as Noah told me the other day, that he was in the room when Futzenreuter got the call, and he was saying, Futz was going, "They did what? They what? What is this about?" So tell us about the Red ROM problems and when it came to your notice and what you guys had to do to fix it.
Well, Foots and I we disagreed on what the problems were, and they didn't all get fixed because first of all, of course, we checked for this stuff when I was doing some playtesting. So something got changed at the last minute, and so we disagree a little bit on what that was. And I know, and I still claim that one of the things was we were doing some last minute touch up to some of the art, and I know that one of the characters got like 2 pixels larger. The pterodactyl got 2 pixels larger like one on top and one on the bottom because the wings spread a little bit farther or something. And just that, I mean, you can't change even the most minute thing without there possibly being a really nasty repercussion, and that's what happened. And so it could have been a couple of things.
To every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to be really careful about changing anything at the last minute, and we were in a rush too, because we had a very strict schedule to try to get this game done on time, and because the factory had to keep going. You didn't want anyone to get laid off or anything like that. So it just ended up we just had to do a quick mad scramble, and hopefully and luckily, like I think 2,000 games might have gotten out with the bug, but yeah, it could have been worse.
It could have been. Yeah, it could have been.
And I
worse.
wish it didn't happen at all. But I mean,
it makes interesting lore, if nothing else.
And certainly there are people that probably have the red ROM that never knew how the cheat.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
I don't think it's like everybody knew it. I mean, I still have people ask me, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "Why do you want to know? Do you want to cheat? What's the deal?"
Well, yeah, and also, Noah's version of listening to Bill over here, it was a lot nicer than when I heard about it. It was like there was an arcade that was like within a few miles from Williams, and I like drove there, and I wanted to like interrogate the guy. How did you get 1,000,000 points?
Yeah.
I never broke 1,000,000 points. I play the game every day. How did you do that? I want to see it. It's like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and yeah, I never used to swear, but that started. That was
So John started swearing at Williams because of Joust.
because of the freaking pterodactyl bug.
Gee. Hey, so why ostriches?
Okay, the ostriches.
Besides, they're incredibly cute. They can be a little mean.
Okay, so the original concept of the game was, I listed down everything that could fly, and I wanted to do birds because that was more of an emotional connection. And I also was looking at the game design that you would fly, but you also need to walk on the land to give interesting enough gameplay. And obviously I did write down ostriches, but it was when I was listing all the possible things that we could use. And I was originally thinking of it being a little more fantasy or graphic novel or, again, when you look at I read a ton of comic books and watching movies, and there's a lot of fantasy type things, and so.
Did you have a specific like sci-fi with birds inspiration? Like, was there a particular story you can point to be like that? What's it?
No. No, but I could tell you that there was a bunch of movies like, in Flash Gordon they had Prince Volton. He had wings. So those characters had wings, and like I said, there was like 100 comic book characters and stuff with wings and all sorts of things, and So leap back to my last year of college. I had the opportunity to meet my idol, Stan Lee.
Nice.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
And at that time, only comic book geeks knew him because there weren't any movies then. And he lectured at my university, and it wasn't very well attended. but my friend and I were like, "Can we talk to you a little bit longer?" You know, and he did. And actually, this was I don't know how you see this or not.
See the shot.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh.
Okay, this
there you go.
is Spider-Man 39, which is relevant because
Oh, nice.
this is another example of the Green Goblin flies on his Batwing, or his bat contraption. So that's just, you know, and Stan signed it for me. And then when he agreed to talk to us for a while, I asked him, well, you make all the, you're coming up with characters all the time, and also Marvel doesn't advertise, you know, and he answered really quickly, and he was really proud of this, was that he said, well, he makes all the names simple on purpose because it's word-of-mouth advertising. Okay, so now fast forward back to Williams, where initially I was thinking of it more fanciful. It wouldn't, you know, would have had a, you know, like an Avatar with the flying characters or the mountain banshees. It's like, okay, well, so that's nice to write down in a GDD, you know, or whatever. So then my second, okay, kid, here's how the universe works, was I talked to Joe Dillon, who is in charge of sales, and then he told me how the marketing worked, that their customers were, they had a little over 100 customers. They were distributors. And so they did brochures and stuff. And so right away, I left that meeting, and with an unexpected result, which is, okay, so they don't have a marketing department. They're not marketing to the players. And so the Kedzie office where it was developed was a half-a-mile walk to where upper management was at, where Joe Dillon was at. And by the length of time it took me to walk back to Kedzie, I said, okay, to hell with it. They're going to be ostriches. We're just going to make them ostriches, because anybody who then, when they go to the arcade, they'll be able to say, okay, I played this weird flying game with ostriches. So it was really, the idea came from out of a need to try to tap in to getting word of mouth advertising to players, and it was like, what the heck, we're going to call them ostriches, but they still were going to be bred for combat, which Python Angelo later captured in his poster, where he added some contraptions to their legs, and you know, they would have been bred for combat, so it got changed to that, but we could say ostrich.
Now that poster still exists, the original one. The charcoal.
It was actually It's
in Mike Stroh's.
It was colored pencil.
Colored pencil.
Colored pencil. Yeah, so we talked about, when he did that poster, that was all his idea, because he wanted to do something at the show, at the trade show, where, you know, the distributors and operators there, is that maybe their kids would get the poster and also use that as advertising. That was entirely his own initiative.
It really
to
brings
do that.
brings the game even more to life when you look at the poster, and then you apply it to the game.
Oh, absolutely, and I was in awe. I watched him do some of that with the colored pencils, and his talent is unbelievable.
Cool. So let's see what other you said.
I can tell you that for me, ostriches are the Joust bird. You probably heard it before, but like, I grew up, I was in daycare, Joust was there. It was a weird-looking bird, and people would be like, "That bird doesn't actually fly," and I'm like, "It's a real bird." Yeah, ostrich. It's a joust bird. So
Yeah.
when I
Joust
first
bird.
encountered an ostrich before it tore my dad's hat off his head and ate it, I wanted to see the ostrich
They're
in the petting
mean.
museum because it's the joust bird.
They
Yeah.
are mean.
Cool.
They'll spit at you too. They are mean. My wife Robin
That's
took
rude.
painting lessons from a lady who had an ostrich farm, and she said they are mean. They'll spit at you. They'll kick you. I think they were a good choice. I mean, at the very least. And you said, John, you said there were personal challenges overcoming. And I think we're probably talking about going from the common shooter space themes to something new and different, and having to protect your team and compartmentalizing it a little bit. Tell us a little bit about getting Joust developed.
Yeah, so that was a big deal, and it slowly festered. So originally the team was a bunch of introverts until Angelo came on. Then we had our honest to God.
The Maximus outrovert.
Then we actually had an extrovert, but we were working quietly. And a lot of people didn't even know what we were doing. And Ken Fidesna, the head of engineering, was always supportive. He never said, "Don't do it." He let me do whatever I wanted, or then Bill what he wanted. And a couple times he had to play referee when we were debating a couple things. But it was the normal development. It was being done pretty quietly, and then once it was farther in development. Also, let's interject Robotron for a moment, because VidKids, their games were in terms of in Mike Stroll's mind, the president of the company, and sales and stuff like that, it was, that's the Williams formula. It's the Jarvis DeMar formula, and that's what a Williams game is. It's shooting, the bright colors, reds, and the side cabin is black with red and yellow on it. And so as it became, and so when Robotron was was getting ready to go on test, that was when before it was what they were working on was a secret. We never saw that. But then when it got into the halls, when they were making the 15 test cabinets, literally you had to wait in line to play Robotron. I mean, the enthusiasm level of Robotron was, this is even better than Stargate and Defender, and it was the fast action, what everyone was used to. Well, then when people started finding out what Joust was, it was like the opposite, and then Mike Stroll would hear he would ask other people's opinions, and then gradually was building that people were saying, "Oh, this game is going to suck. It doesn't," and everyone was, "It doesn't shoot." Was one of them.
Didn't follow the model.
It didn't follow their comfort zone model, and so.
But did it, I guess my question would be, do they eat their food on a plate that has compartments on it too? Yeah. So it's like everybody on the team was really supportive of the project and stuff. But then, so Fidesna, I'm sure he was starting to hear more and more rumblings about this. Sure.
And he was shielding the team. And then I would find out about some of this, and I'd have to shield the team that, hey, there's some negative comments, and it's like, screw that. You're not, don't worry about it. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's not our thing. That's over there.
This
is ours.
Creative people don't generally deal with criticism well.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a creative group, and you don't want to like.
Well, it's also not pertinent because, you're right.
Baby.
It's not Jarvis's thing. It's your thing. It's different.
Well, yeah, but
that's intentional.
Right, but people were afraid of the assembly line, and that when Robotron would stop, that then they would have a loser on their hand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then it came to a head where, okay, again, Chicago was a magical place because it had like a toy vending was kind of a hub there, and then you had it was really a hub of video, but also Mother's Arcade was there, which was one of the most important arcades in the country. And Mike and Bill Herman were really good friends, and he invited Bill Herman in, and he absolutely trashed the game. And then Stroll was really worried about it, and it's like, what do you do now, and all this stuff. And I may remember some of this wrong or whatever, but I can't remember if I told Stroll or it was Fidesda. And he said, "Here, this is what the expert at Mother's said about the game." And I just said, "I'm right, he's wrong." that was
And he probably was of the same mindset. It's not a shooter. How could it possibly be?
And I said, it's not supposed to be a shooter. Let Eugene and Larry do what they're good at. What we're trying to do is something different, and hopefully bring more people into the arcades, and then you have a couple of lines. Mm-hmm. Is it a risk? Yeah, it is. So then that was all out of their comfort zone, and they didn't want people to find out that the game would bomb when we went to test it, because we were close to testing the game.
Right.
And so what the agreement was Joe Dillon, in charge of sales, who was also in charge of the test thing, he found some place in Batavia, Illinois, way out by a particle accelerator, which was okay. I had to laugh at that. It's like, okay, great. So you're going to test the game, but
that's the reason the game goes faster.
But by a particle accelerator, and it's like, yeah. So I went out when the game. So when the game was there, I lived there for 2 days while I was out on test, because you can read people's expressions and it's no problem.
Yeah. When they were playing it, when you saw them playing it, how did the simultaneous multiplayer play out? Because I know in Office you guys were playing Cutthroat. Did you see the players playing? And I mean first generation players, and also like when you first released an competitive or cooperative. Where did you see it happening?
Single player.
Just single player. They wouldn't even play it.
At first they're playing single player, and then when they got a little more comfortable, they paid a little bit of the simultaneous. Enough to help the cash box, but not to double it or.
Interesting. So it wasn't catching on.
It didn't catch on right away, but it definitely helped give the game legs, because
it's all there.
They look at the earnings over at least legs. 16 weeks.
Well, four plus all the other ones that are flying around had legs too. How many legs are in a Joust screen? I can't believe you didn't know that off the top of your head.
Well,
6 at the moment.
No, because I forget how many are on the screen at a
10.
time on everyone.
10 plus your 2 players potentially.
Yeah.
We have a question from the audience that I'm not sure it pertains to you, but why didn't the Joust 1v1 pinball game get past the prototype stage? Were you involved in the pinball at all?
No, was I'm not even sure why they did it, or if it was an experiment or what, but yeah.
It is revolutionary, and it's simultaneous multiplayer pinball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I've played it before. It's out there in some forms.
Yeah, I even questioned why they were doing that. It just seemed, for a pinball, it seemed like really limiting. Of why would you?
It's weird, but
you do that?
at least when I played it, I got to see the ostriches. I got to see Joust again, so I was an IP lover. But yeah, you weren't involved in the pinball at all.
No.
Man, do we want to go to Mike's question about the sequel?
What's
he just wanted to have stories or thoughts about Joust 2.
Yeah, I think that's fine because we're getting down to that eventually down here.
Okay, we'll get there then.
All the stuff in the top part of it we've got.
I would like to have a closing note about when it tested.
In the particle accelerator.
Yeah.
Did you get superpowers to fly at that
the
point?
happy ending was that it tested number 1. And then soon after we tested it at Mother's, Bill Herman, who, he said honestly why he didn't think the game would be successful. He wrote the classiest letter about how, he was wrong. So, about congratulations, you tried, and that he learned something. And it was really a classy letter, and the other big shout out I'm going to give is to Fidesna and Stroll and Joe Dillon and Dassault. It's like they still could have said no, don't do it, because I'm hearing from all these big people what a risk this is, and I know that they were a little bit. Pushed against the wall where it's kind of hard for them to totally change gears, But they let us do it. They still let us test it to find out. They didn't just say, don't, change it now. They didn't know I had a fail-safe in the back of my head anyway in case that happened.
What's the fail-safe?
Well, that the Lances would shoot.
The Lances would shoot. If you had to, the Lances would shoot.
But I wasn't going to tell them that.
Yeah, don't tell them. Don't tell them. No, never give everybody all your nuts in one basket. I don't think so.
I'm quite happy that the Lances don't shoot.
but it's the last
You're
thing.
Gonna go. I can see it now.
Happen,
Chris is going to go home tonight. He's going to dream about Lances shooting on
Joust. It's like no, don't do that. No, but it was just like
you'll be having a nightmare.
Put yourself in the place of somebody who's worrying about an assembly line, and he's hearing from some very trusted people giving very honest opinions about how this game may not work, and they stuck with it.
So how
So I got to give a shout out to them for they were a big part of the success of the game.
They could have said no.
They could have said no.
They could have said no.
And they didn't. And
how did you know? You've told me this story a couple times, I think. How did you know internally that it was going to be successful when it went on site? And I could take you through what you told me, but it sound okay. So you had it on test at Mother's, and you were watching a young man play.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
So I preface it for you.
Well, I learned this.
This is how he knew it was going to be. This is his first inkling outside of Williams that it's going to be successful. So watch what happens.
No, it took me a half hour. It was at Batavia. So it was at Batavia by the particle accelerator. So you're looking for who the stud player is at the arcade, okay? Which I checked to see who had high scores and stuff, and so then I found out from the arcade up who it was. So when that guy walked in, he's like,
It wasn't me, but
it
should have been. It should have been me, but it wasn't me.
He's gonna check out the new game, right?
Yeah.
So he plays the game. He played it twice. He got slaughtered, and the second time he lost, he slammed the machine and showed his middle finger, right? And then he stormed out of the arcade. And then a half an hour later, he came back in a car with two of his friends, and they huddled around the game and they played it the rest of the night. And I said, okay, they're hooked. No,
there it is.
nothing. I think I even told Dylan, don't worry about it. It's gonna that's like the best sign you want.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I can't tell you how many times I go through that. I cringe at every once in a while. I'll stream a first playthrough of me of just a random indie game or whatever it is I want to play that moment, and almost inevitably I will get frustrated at something happening. It's not a sign that I want to stop playing, and it's actually the mountain that I want to climb.
Yeah.
The first step is like, and I trip and fall on myself. I'm like, why was that rock even there? And I'm kind of cursing the heavens, but it's in the most loving way possible, and that like I'm going to climb this mountain.
Yeah. Nobody wants a game to beat them. It's a machine. It's beating you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? So I found that really, really interesting. So Battle of the Game, got that stuff covered. 40th I think you covered this already, which was the 40th anniversary today. The players, the places, like free play and games still existing. You covered that one. What are you proud about? The things that you told me you're proud about, I'm going to let you cover them here. The flying, the AI, catching the eggs, doing the machine on time, documenting the design, the graphics, the difference. Literally, it was so different than anything else, which is one of the reasons I think it stands the test of time. But what were you most proud about on the machine? I think I got something on the back too.
Yeah, so you covered well. The main thing was the pillar, was the emotional connection with the flying, and like I had told you, Lonnie, was that so much time was spent on just that, and this is where a lot of people, everybody on the team, had a contribution to make that happen. So I could write on a short GDD, game flies and the flap of the wing helps propel you forward. Well, it's real easy to write that, but to make that happen for real, okay, that's where Futzenreuter did all this magic to make the flying work and make it feel more and more realistic and more connected. And we went through a lot of iterations of that, and that he tried he tried a lot of stuff. And there's some cases where I tried to we were thinking along the same length, but I didn't explain it right or whatever. But we went back and forth. But to get that flying right was
so elegant. I mean, the controls, the left, right, flap, and creating the glide and the angles.
The physics really work well. They even hold up today. They're unique and they feel satisfying when you tap that button a bunch of times and you find out that you can get to the top of the screen and bounce around and playing in the physics, like that's been a theme throughout modern games. It's very, very present here.
Yeah.
But you also have to add the graphics, because you can get the physics right, but Jan's artwork on getting the realistic looking birds and we kept torturing her with
having them make them smaller,
making them okay, we got
not as pretty,
it's got to be smaller and
not as pretty.
And when it started out, it was they were gray, and it's like, well, we can't see them well enough, so then she figured out to make green buzzards and blue ostrich, and so it still had to, so the visuals had to be right. And then you bring in John Kolarik, who was the lead sound guy, and he took Tim Murphy under his wing, and they did the sounds together. And it was now he was a more experienced guy, and like I said, look, there's like 5 sounds I care about, but really I only care about one. The flap. You get, and he goes, well, this isn't impossible. We can't. it's not made to make a flap sound. And
I
interrupted in mid sentence and said, "Okay, so when you succeed at making that flap sound, let me hear it." And then other than that, because he's such an experienced guy, I mean, it's like I just told him, look, I want the pterodactyl sound to be a certain way because it's got to scare someone to divert their attention. The transporter sound was important. So there was just a few sounds that were important.
Right.
But because this guy is such a professional, it was then just do your thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what he did. But that's the importance that, take away the sounds, and that also would take away from
the sound,
that emotional connection with feeling that you're flying the bird.
Yeah, there's so many sounds that extrapolate out so well that it really has stood the test of time.
I'm going to step away and start finding our other guests, Josh and Nikita of
Cool.
Killer Queen, just to get them ready.
Yeah, and I'll finish off these last couple items here.
And just for those following along who want to know what's coming up, we got the creators of Killer Queen, Josh and Nikita. I'm gonna talk to them a little bit. We only have 3 microphones here. Ideally, we would have all of us on there at some point, but I want to hear you guys interact, you and the creators of Killer Queen. So I'll talk to them for a bit to introduce those who might not be familiar with the game and why it relates to Joust, because it very much relates to Joust.
Yep.
And then once I get through fanboying, I'll call you back over and then let you 3 talk without the kiddos trying to drive the conversation.
Right. 2. Get through there, okay. What's going on? Yeah, so the other thing that most people don't think about was how many platforms it's been ported to. It's Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation, MAME, Killer Queen. It's been in Ready Player One in the book. Didn't get the prominence that the book has in the movie, but in the movie, I think it's Bubbles that uses the same flight mechanisms. Pretty amazing, all the places that link to Joust. It was inducted in the Hall of Fame last year, which is really pretty cool. And then this afternoon, of course, we have the Joust competition, cut-through competition, which I'll be the referee, and whoever wins that gets to play you. Those are all the fun stuff. So tell us about all the things you've seen it ported to. What have you seen some of the platforms it's on?
Some of them, but it was when we were making the arcade games. None of the designers, well, maybe Jarvis and Damar, but they were a separate company, right? But we didn't have any say,
Right.
So it was Williams had sold licensing deals to people to make the home versions, and we were like silly enough to think, well, gee, will they let us play and critique it? And the answer was
no.
Well, you can think that you are, but we're just going to rubber stamp it that it's fine. So we didn't have a say in how any of those came out. But
and they don't play the same as the arcade version. Some of them get close, but
they're not going to. The hardware's going to be different. How they route the software. I mean, I think Foots would be more accurate at being able to assess, because so much of it was based on his code, and which who changed his code entirely, and who
I have a whole printout of it. I have a whole printout of his code.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I have
cool.
I have a complete printout. I think I got it from Les Potts.
Oh, there's one game that nobody ever mentions.
Okay.
Track and field.
Track and field.
Because track and field, in my opinion, was someone that got it about Joust. Was the idea of a flat button was every press of the button
right.
was a flap of the wings. And then when track and field came
The faster you go, the faster you go.
Every press of the button was moving the legs faster, and I thought, cool, they get it.
So our I'm not sure when we're going to segue here, but I wanted to put this in the segue. So we're sitting here with Joust, and directly behind us, you see Killer Queen in the screen, and there'll be a Joust competition, but then there's going to be a Killer Queen competition, and Killer Queen employs Joust. You'll see they're flying. I think some of their dynamics are a little bit different because you can literally hover at the bottom of something equally. The flight not quite like Joust does, but very, very similar. The thing I found interesting when I was reading about Killer Queen, and I think I brought it to your attention, was that Eugene Jarvis's Raw Thrills makes Killer Queen, and at the time when Joust was being developed, the conversation we had was Eugene wasn't opposed to it, but he just didn't get it and wasn't sure that it was going to be successful. So now, 40 years later, Eugene is making a version of your game. Is one of those things where the world comes full circle. We're celebrating 40 years, and Eugene is now getting Joust because he's making your game on steroids.
Yeah, I guess it's like.
But that should be like Eugene. Do you get Joust now?
Yeah, I do kind of want to say that, but there was nothing malicious in what Eugene said. He doesn't
seem that way. But
he just looked at me and goes,
I don't get it.
I know it's popular, but I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, there's plenty of games out there that I don't get either.
So
I didn't, other than the nice graphics we were talking about it yesterday. I didn't really get Dragon's Lair. I thought it was.
Well, right, yeah, the Laserdisc. I couldn't play those. I was like, I would play it, and I was like, how does it tell me where I'm supposed to go? Is there something? It's just like it was like trial and error.
Yeah,
and I didn't enjoy that.
So it's like everybody has games that it's either going to connect with them or it's not. That's
right.
That's just what happens.
So last night, I think we must be ready. Chris is here. Last night we had the Joust 40th anniversary dinner, and you had the gentleman Josh and Nikita from Killer Queen there, and Chris Delp, the community manager here, and Corey, and oh my gosh, I'm going to forget Corey's wife's names. So the Haydens were there, who owned Free Play, and Tracy, who is next to us here from the UK. I was there, your kids and your wife were there, but the surprise was Trista and her boyfriend, John Carmack, who I wouldn't tell you was coming, who Chris Delp contacted Trista, who got John to come, and to see John Carmack posted out the tweet with the Joust stuffed animal and you, and so it's out there, and to have a picture of John taking a picture of you, the AI expert, it's really, he's in the Hall of Fame also. It was really kind of a surreal. It reminded me so much of setting in Chicago prior to the Williams event, and you and Futzenritter and Python Angelo talking after 30 years of, and I'm listening to the conversation elevate with Killer Queen and with Carmack and with you, and I'm like going, this is just good stuff, man. This is just good stuff.
No, I was like going.
Little starstruck. We were all a little starstruck.
Is this real? Yeah. First of all, I'm in awe of John Carmack anyway. So, and I'm going, he's here?
And he wanted to be there to meet you. How does that strike you? Like, so many people wanted to say something. Noah wanted to say something, and he considers you a mentor, and Warren thinks so highly of you, and Futzenritter thinks so highly of you, and players think so highly of what you've done and created, and now you have John Carmack saying, I need to be there to meet John Newcomer on the 40th anniversary of Joust.
Yeah. I can't even I can't comment on that. You know, I'd always wanted to meet the Killer Queen guys, and you had said there was going to be a surprise person. And I like seeing some of the people that you were interviewing, because I always loved Noah Falstein. We always got along great together, and you know, seeing Foots again is wonderful. He's such
Falstein,
a nice guy.
the head head of Google Games. I mean, a massive organization, and of course, on the other end, then you have Carmack, and you can kind of put them in the same categories of the industry. You have Google Games, and you have John Carmack, who's in charge of VR for Facebook, right? You know, and you're like two of the largest organizations in the world, and they both think highly of you.
Yeah, and he did like a few minor little games like Doom and being such as it, and I mean, so it's just it's just surrealistic, and I want to, and again, I want to spread this to every member of the team on Joust.
Yeah.
Because, okay, it's nice for them to put my name to it, but you take away any person that was on that team.
They've been different.
No matter how long they were on the project, it would have been totally different. I mean, Python came on the game pretty late in it, but his contribution was huge. And, you know, Ken Lance did some support special effects. And, you know, you miss any of those things are missing, and it wouldn't be Joust.
No, you didn't have Noah to play test it with you.
So
it wouldn't be the same.
Right. So it's like you got to love everybody on the team and their contributions. And what they did.
And 40 years later, it's in Ready Player One movie, and it's like we said, Xbox, GameCube, Midway Classics, just on and on and on. And I think with that, Chris, are you ready to? He looks like he's ready to step up to Killer Queen. Killer Queen is behind us, and we're going to transition into a discussion with the Killer Queen guys. I believe Chris is going to lead that, and then we'll merge back in. John,
right, thank you.
Congratulations again on 40 years and all the fun, man.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the players that has given it that life. So,
all right, brother.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.